Show. I'm your host name, and today we're diving into a feeling I know we've all experienced. That moment your finger hovers over the buy button, not because your analysis tells you to, but because everyone else seems to be doing it. That familiar mix of panic and euphoria.
Exactly. That irrational fear of missing out or the pressure to keep up. It's a powerful emotional current that can hijack the most well-constructed financial plan.
And to help us unpack this, we have Guest Name, a behavioral finance expert, joining us. Welcome, Guest Name.
Thanks for having me, host name. This is my favorite topic because it's the quietest yet most destructive force against personal budgets and sound investment portfolios.
I love that description. The quietest yet most destructive. You're talking about herding bias. For our listeners, why is this idea so important right now in 2025?
Well, fundamentally, it's about acknowledging a core truth. We are not Homo economicus. We aren't perfectly rational, purely logical beings who always make the optimal decision. We're human, and we are prone to powerful cognitive biases.
Right, so we're not just bad at math, we're fighting our own evolution.
Exactly. It's hardwired into us. Think about the savannah. Following the group guaranteed survival. Being the contrarian meant potentially becoming a lion's lunch. That ancient programming translates now into the deep-seated fear of being the only one who's wrong, the only one not participating in the latest economic boom.
So when the market rallies, we create an inflated bubble. And when it drops, we generate mass panic. It's the same psychological mechanism, just applied in different directions.
Precisely. We consciously ignore our own analysis because the voice of the crowd, our need for belonging and safety, is simply louder than our own conviction.
The emotional engine, FOMO. That brings us to the modern engine driving this, FOMO, or the fear of missing out. It feels like social media has turned FOMO from a psychological tendency into an economic driver.
It absolutely has. Social media amplifies this effect to unprecedented levels. When you scroll and see quick gains, exotic purchases, or that viral stock pick, your brain interprets that as a personal loss. Not an actual financial loss, but a perceived loss of opportunity.
That's a good point. It's not about the money you lost, it's the money you could have made.
And neuroscientifically, that feeling is intense. FOMO activates brain areas associated with both reward and pain. When you observe others getting a financial reward, your dopamine system fires up, creating a powerful impulse towards imitation. It's an effective emotional trap that makes you act urgently without thought.
Lessons from history. To show this isn't just a 21st century problem, what's your go-to historical analogy for the herd?
I always start with the tulip mania of 17th century Holland. Tulip bulbs briefly became the hottest commodity on the planet. People weren't buying them for their intrinsic value as flowers. They were buying them because they genuinely believed they could sell them to the next person for an even higher price.
The infamous greater fool theory.
That's the herd at its maximum expression. The social pressure, disguised as a unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, resulted in a brutal collapse, financially ruining thousands.
And we saw that same systemic failure in 2008, right? It wasn't just subprime mortgages, it was a failure of judgment driven by systemic pressure. Major institutions, clinging to the belief that housing prices would never fall, kept buying and securitizing low-quality assets.
Absolutely. That was a cocktail of herding and the illusion of control. And when trust vanished, the panic was immediate. Everyone, retail investors and institutions alike, were trying to be the first one out. As the IMF and the Fed consistently highlighted in their reports, a lack of contrarian thinking was a key contributing factor. When everyone thinks alike, no one is thinking enough.
The hidden cost, everyday spending and debt. We focused a lot on investing, but the source material makes a critical point. This social pressure is a far more common predator in our everyday spending and debt decisions. How does the herd show up there?
Oh, it's insidious. It masquerades as the acceptable standard of living. Think about your car, your house, or even your holidays. Are those purely functional choices? Or are they influenced by an unconscious desire to project an image that resonates with your social circle?
The pressure to keep up.
That's the consumption arms race. It's the self-destructive effort to keep pace with the spending habits of those around us, whether they're colleagues or just acquaintances on Instagram with higher incomes. It leads people to take on bad debt, compromising their future cash flow for the temporary pleasure of immediate social validation.
And social media magnifies it because we're constantly exposed to unattainable luxury, right?
Precisely. Studies show constant exposure to opulent lifestyles generates chronic dissatisfaction with one's own financial level. That dissatisfaction directly leads to behaviors like increased impulse spending on viral items, or critically, prioritizing spending on shareable experiences over vital future investments like retirement.
Actionable tips to reclaim control. So how do we stop paying interest on debt just to impress people who deep down don't actually care? Let's talk about concrete, actionable advice.
We need a psychological shield. I have three main tips. The first one is simple. Define your why. Before executing any investment or large purchase, stop and ask yourself, am I doing this because it fits my documented evidence-based plan or because someone else, a relative, an influencer, a friend, told me to?
That forces a moment of reflection. What's the second tip?
It's the 72-hour rule. If you feel an irresistible emotional urge to jump into a hot investment or make a big impulse purchase, commit to waiting exactly 72 hours. The initial emotion, that dopamine rush, almost always fades during that time, creating space for rational analysis to take over.
I love that. It manages the urgency. And what about the everyday consumption side?
For that, you need to redefine luxury for yourself. For many expert investors, true luxury is living debt-free. And on the spending side, apply the confidence budget, the same 30-day waiting period, but specifically for purchases influenced by social pressure. If the desire fades, you didn't need it.
Cultivating independent judgment. Those are great practical tools, but how do you cultivate the inner confidence, the authority to withstand the crowd's mockery when you're standing alone?
The true foundation of resistance starts with knowledge. People succumb to pressure because they lack an internal anchor of expertise and experience. If you don't understand why you invested, it's easy for anyone to convince you to sell out.
Can you break down what you mean by experience and expertise here?
Experience doesn't just mean surviving 30 years in the market. It means having documented and learned from your operations. Maintain a journal. Record why you bought or sold. When the herd is panicking, you review your thesis, not the news. That's experience.
And expertise?
That's dedicating time to understand the fundamentals. Read the company balance sheet. Read the World Bank or Fed projections. The sheer depth of your knowledge gives you the unshakable security to confidently say no when everyone else is shouting yes.
So your plan becomes the supreme authority, not the noise.
Exactly. Establish crystal clear rules before entering any operation, your entry point, your profit target, and crucially, your exit point, the stop loss. Once the trade is active, that plan is your only law. It is your strongest barrier against raw emotion.
That's a powerful framework to end on. So, as we wrap up, what's the single most important lesson the audience should take away from our conversation today?
It's the lesson from Warren Buffett. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. Sustained profitability is, at its core, an act of nonconformity. Your competitive advantage as an individual investor is your capacity to be patient, methodical, and independent of the surrounding noise.
That means logging your operations for experience, educating your judgment for expertise, making your documented plan your only law for authority, and being honest about your risk for trustworthiness.
That's the formula. Do not let the voice of the crowd steal the financial future you are building with hard work and intelligence.
Guest name, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you for helping us identify and build defenses against this silent financial enemy.
My pleasure, host name.
And to all our listeners, we invite you to reflect on your most recent financial decisions. Were they truly yours, or were they dictated by the herd? We'll see you next time. Welcome back to the